Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on handling multilingual metadata as well as multilingual data in data modules. Now, this content is covered in the core documentation under the sections working with multilingual metadata as well as working with multilingual data. But I thought I would create this video to help augment that documentation. So the first thing we're going to cover off is multilingual metadata. So the first step in that is to export a language, and you can choose the properties you wish to export: label, screen tip, description. In this case, we'll just use a label. And then you can ask to export the property. So this will let you know what it is specifically that you are translating. You can also export the short identifier and or the long identifier or both. And this will help you to understand where in the data module the item is that you're translating. For simplicity, we're just going to export these two items. You can also exclude hidden objects, you can ignore case sensitivity, and you can exclude external references. So let's take a look quickly at what this export looks like. And when you look at this document, in this case, we've only exported 2 columns. So these are all the labels within the data module. Now, for expedience, I've already exported this and done translations. So I've already gone ahead and done that work. And so if we take a look at this particular file, you can see that I have the original text column with all the labels in it, and then created or inserted a new column called French text and put in all my French translations. This file is then imported into the data module, as can be seen here. And then you will create a language. So you'll add a new language. You'll say what the from language is, what the to language is, and then you will go down to that file that you've imported, and you'll add the original text field here, and you will add the translated to text field here. And you could also, if you had exported it, you could also add the long identifier, and that will do a perfect match to the exact item within the data module that you translated. Okay, so I've already done that, so you can see my translation was brought in here. And then what you can do is once that's brought in, you can preview the language. And when you click on this, what it'll do is it'll open a new tab for you. And you'll get a green border letting you know that you're now previewing the French metadata for this particular data module. So you can peruse through here, and this is what the authors would be seeing when they author in reporting. Now, as stated in the documentation, currently Dashboards does not support this multilingual metadata. It is only supported in reporting. Okay, so the second thing we want to take a look at is how do we handle multilingual data. So if we look at this particular table here, order method, you'll see that there's multiple columns, one for each language. So we have here German, French, Japanese, etc. All these columns are here in this folder that I created called language columns, because we need to have these available to us in order to dynamically swap them out. This order method column here is the original order method EN column. We can see this by looking at the advanced properties and looking at the identifier. So this is the column name within the database. And when we do dynamic column selections for multilingual data, what we're going to do is build up our own identifier and then append the correct language value at the end of it. So what does that look like? So if we look at this particular order method, we can see that it's a calculation, and we can edit that calculation and see what we're doing to make this column dynamic. So here we have a macro, and in that macro, we're building up a string, which is the identifier, which is the first portion of that identifier that I just showed you, order underscore method underscore. And then what we're doing is we're adding on a value that we're going to pull out of a parameter map file using the query value function. So the file that we're pulling our information from is this language lookup CSV file, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. The column that we're looking to bring back is the language column, and because language is a reserved word, we're going to tack on this underscore. So just so that you understand, if particular reserved words, we will put an underscore after it so that it's not confused with that reserved word. And then we're going to have a condition here, which is the locale field within that particular parameter lookup file. And the condition that we're looking for is this value is equal to our run locale. And this is a session parameter that you get for free for every session for a logged in user. And you can find this actually also in the core documentation under sessions. So you can see here we have a session parameter called run locale. And in the macro, you're going to precede that with a $sign so that we know that we're grabbing a session parameter. And then we put that in single quotes because this filter, because this is a string-based column, we need to have it equate to a string that's pulled back from this session parameter. So this will come back as en-us, for example, but it will be in single quotes. So let's look at the file that we're actually comparing that to. So if we go and look at this parameter map folder that I've created, this is the language lookup file that I've imported into the data module. You can see that here. And when we look at the grid data that comes back, you can see that you can have multiple locales. So English Australia, etc., Canada, Zimbabwe, and so on. But our data equates to a single en value, uppercase en. So what we want to do is take that run locale value or that session parameter, and we want to translate it into something that our data will understand. So at runtime, that run locale is taken in, and it will return, because I'm now in the English locale, so lowercase en, it will translate using that calculation to an uppercase en, and it will bring me back that uppercase identifier, which is order method underscore en. Okay, so if I switch this at runtime to the French locale, well, then all of a sudden that column would be built up to order underscore method underscore fr, and we would see French data coming back. It would then pull it from this column. So that is doing column-based multilingual data. What if it's row-based? So let's take a look at our underlying objects here. And we have something called product lookup. And you'll notice that there's a filter on this. And if we go to manage filters for that, and we edit that filter, you'll see that this has a macro that's very similar to what we had in the column replacement or the dynamic column methodology. So this has product language coming from this particular table. And we're equating it to, again, a single quote, and then we're doing our query value lookup from our spreadsheet. We're grabbing the language column where our locale is equal to, and then the string version of our session parameter. And so in this case, it will again return us en, which you can see here. Now, if we disable this particular filter, you will see, and if we click off the grid and then back on to rerun the query, you'll see now that we have all kinds of language rows coming back. So this filter distills it down to just one language based on the locale that we are logged in as. Okay, so this data module is actually available on the IBM Accelerator catalog, and I'll leave a link in the description below so that you can download that. And what that consists of is the actual data module spec, as well as the translation file that I showed you, as well as the language lookup file that I showed you that is used as a parameter map. Okay, so let's take a look at what this will look like if we created a report based off of this particular data module. Okay, so to keep things simple, we'll just pull something from product. So we know that we had multilingual data for products. We'll also bring in order method, and then we'll just bring in a measure. And if we go and look at the SQL for this, we'll quickly see that EN was brought in for our product language lookup filter. And you'll see here that we're actually pulling order method underscore EN for our order method column. So let's save this report. And we'll close that. And we're going to change our locale. And I'll select French. And we're going to now reopen this report. And you can see that our metadata is now indeed in French. And if we look at the SQL, you can now see that the product language is now equating to FR, and the order method column is now suffixed with FR as well. And if we run this, we get the multilingual metadata, as well as the multilingual product name and the multilingual order method name. And that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching.